All right, here we go. Week 14, day 2, I think. Or 13. I don't know. All right, so let's. You've made changes to the questions in this quiz. I love Candace. You're so terrible. All right. So let's go through the midterm quiz statistics. See you guys did on it overall. Pretty good overall. 75% average. So pretty decent. Interesting distribution on the grades. All right. So first up, we got a classic equivocation fallacy. This is an actual thing from Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you guys know Lord of the Rings, but Eowyn is a shield maiden, I believe she's described. So there's a prophecy that no man can kill the Witch King of Angmar. Obviously, people reading that as no human, right? Because man and humanity are. But Eowyn says, "But no living man am I." Bam, and she takes him out. So, meaning, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. Equivocation, using the same word in two different contexts. Black and white fallacy. I guess I can see that. No living man may hinder me. Except I think that was meant quite seriously. That he believed he was invincible, right? So it's equivocation on the word man. No answer. It's unfortunate. Pick one. Trump, I was the best president. Everyone says so. So this is ad populum, an appeal to popularity, or appeal to the crowd, or appeal to common wisdom that everyone knows. You could also say it was an ad verecundium because he is claiming it as well, which would be a appeal to authority as well. But I didn't put that on here. If there's ever like an ambiguity, I don't put it on there. Okay. People with privilege don't know what it's like to suffer. So that's black and white, right? Yeah, trust me. Like there are people with privilege that have had cancer and kids die and stuff like that. It's kind of it's a kind of horrible statement that people make when they engage in black and white thinking. Circular reasoning. Yeah, I can get why you might say that. I can get why you might say that, but this is pretty clear black and white thinking. Sunk cost, yeah, not even. No. Sunk cost is when you've invested a lot of time and money into something, and so you keep doing it even when it's a bad decision to do so. Like this one. We've already invested $5 billion into high-speed rail, so we might as well continue building it. So that's a classic sunk cost fallacy. Instead, a good critical thinker will always evaluate the pros and cons. And so, if it makes more sense to bail out of a project, then you bail out of it. You don't keep doing something just because you did it before. You don't want to feel like you wasted your time. Is the source of a sunk cost fallacy. We don't know what caused the universe, therefore God did it. As appeal to ignorance. I believe I mentioned this both in the lecture and in the fallacy notes, and I think I went over it again in the midterm review. So, yeah, 95% of you guys got that one. That's good. Appeal to improper authority. If you said because somebody told me, that would be appeal to authority. But this is we don't know why. We don't know why, therefore X is the form of appeal to ignorance. The Democrat Party supports teachers' union. Teachers' unions, you are a Democrat, therefore you must support the teachers' union, is a fallacy of division. What is true of the group is not always true of the part of the group. And in fact, I do know Democrats that don't like teachers' unions very much because, especially in New York, it's an interesting conversation. Like I was in Indiana and sitting around a round table, like literally a round table with some of my friends, and there's just people of like every political spectrum there. Republican from New York of all places, and a Democrat that didn't like teachers unions. I don't know, and people that are critical thinkers can think for themselves, and they don't have to just adopt all of the beliefs of the group that they're in. So, yeah, and you also will, again, every time I post anything political, I always go and do something on the other side as well. It's 1-to-1 every time. I try to be very, very careful about that as well. If you want to be right on the issues, you should pick the center point, and here's center wing, right? that I'm also picking on. If you want to be right on the issues, you should pick the center point between the Democrats and Republicans each time. This is an appeal to moderation. So, a couple different appeal to the center argument from the middle is another way of putting it. There's a couple different names for pretty much all the fallacies. Typically have multiple names. Right? It's not sunk cost. Tu quoque, U2, straw man. I can't. Now, straw man is when you are miscategorizing somebody else's argument, which is not happening here at all. Yeah, so this is a classic center wing fallacy, right? Where if you want to be a centrist, you just try to split the difference and go down the middle on every issue, and sometimes that's not right. Between murdering somebody and not murdering somebody, the best option is not murdering half of them. I'll chop arm off. Sometimes one of the sides is just right. Wish it would be that easy sometimes, and I definitely, this is my most common fallacy that I do personally as well. Just because, like I've said before, when you read a lot of philosophy, people make a really good argument for one side, and then you read an argument for the other side, and they make a really good argument, and so you kind of go, huh. I don't know what to believe now, and maybe I'll just split the difference. They both seem reasonable. I don't know. Okay, suppose Bob tells you truthfully that whenever he prepares a talk on Irish music, what was the midterm? What's the midterm before the Irish music talk? Or during it, I guess. He listens to Irish music. He's listening to Irish music now. Is he preparing a talk on Irish music? So this is X implies Y. Y, therefore X. So this is affirming the consequent. Now, you need to learn to translate words into logic. Look at the form of look at the form of the argument and analyze it. And so, if X implies Y, Y is true, we cannot conclude that X is true. I could be listening to Irish music even when I'm not preparing a talk on Irish music. Okay, so I might be, and Bob here is a thin patina over me here. So I might be preparing a talk, or I could be just listening to it for fun. I was listening to it last night. Pigeon on the Gate, #1 session tune, I believe. We go on to thesession.com. So maybe it's correct. Just enjoying some quality tunes, exactly. Suppose Bob now tells you truthfully that every time he listens to a CSI 1 lecture online, he learns something new. So every time you listen to a CSI 1 lecture online, you learn something new. X implies Y. Okay. He is not listening to a CSI 1 lecture right now. So not X. X implies Y, not X. Is Y true? And again, this is maybe, because this is a denying the antecedent fallacy. So he could be out at the park learning something about dinosaurs, right? Like, we haven't said if he learns things when he's not listening to CSI 1. So it's quite possible he could just be attending a lecture by a local archaeologist or paleontologist. Sorry. I have an archaeologist friend who goes crazy when people ask him about dinosaur bones. He's like, I don't study. I'm an archaeologist. I study people, getting buried in artifacts and stuff. So, yeah. So this is X implies Y, not X, therefore not Y. No, it's a denying the antecedent. And so it's maybe, because he could be listening. He could be learning something new just from somebody else, or he might not be. He could just be, I don't know, watching TV or something. He might be watching CNN and therefore learning nothing of substance. Suppose Michael tells you truthfully that every time he plays a game of Dune, it's a board game and an excellent one, he loses. So Michael Juarez is a friend of mine, and he has lost, I think, every game of Dune. So suppose Michael tells you truthfully that I screenshot this and send it to them on their Discord. They find it amusing. Okay, so suppose Michael Juarez tells you truthfully that every time he plays a game of Dune, he loses. X implies Y. Okay. Last night, he won a board game. Was the board game he played Dune? No. Okay. X implies Y. When he plays Dune, he loses. Last night, he won, not Y. X implies Y, not Y, therefore not X. That is a valid form of argumentation. It's also sound. So, that is no. Okay. That is a modus tollens form of argumentation. So it's Pablo, another friend of mine, a former student. Both these guys are former students who I'm friends with now. Suppose Pablo tells you truthfully that every time he plays a game of Dune, he tries to ally me. Also the case. It drives one of my other friends crazy. He's like, Pablo, why are you always so nice to Kearney? I don't know, man. Last time we played a game, did he try to ally me? Yep. Did I accept the alliance? Nope. I allied with another friend, and we won. So X implies Y, X, therefore Y. Straight up, modus ponens, valid. X implies Y, X, therefore Y. Okay, and that's the easiest one to understand. You can see 92% of people got modus ponens, 82% got modus tollens, 68% got the denying the antecedent, and 59% got affirming the consequent. And so you can see right there, statistically speaking, which one of those is the hardest to understand. Those are the four forms of arguments in logic. And our common sense will betray us sometimes, or we just read it and yeah. So you need to learn to translate words from English into logic and then analyze the form of the argument. You get one more shot at this on the midterm. Okay, but you can see the difficulty, right? 59%, 68%, 82%, 92%, right? And that's very common. That's very common. And every semester I've taught this, that's more or less what you see. Simplify this Boolean expression, X and Y or X and Y. That's X and Y. 69%, nice. Okay. Yeah, it's just repeated these two terms, right? The second half is completely redundant. If X is true, Y is true, and Z is false, then Y true, Z is false. That part here is false. And X is true, so true ORed with false is true. So 80% of you guys can do that. Kuhn, what is the scientific method? It is whatever scientists do. I've mentioned this several times in class. So each field, each discipline has its own sort of take on the scientific method and norms and ways that it goes about doing things. And yeah, and so he eventually was just like, I can't give you a version of the scientific method. It's just whatever they do. I've been wanting to play Dune since I learned about it. Yeah, I bought the physical board game over spring break. Played it with my mother-in-law actually, and wife and kid, and it's a really good board game. It's a really good board game. It really needs to be played with 6 people. Playing it with 4 people is a very different experience, and I don't think it's as optimized as the six-player version is. There's two Dune board games too. By the way, get the one that's the remake of the 1977 Avalon Hill issue. What are some causes of the replication crisis? So, the replication crisis is the fact that we're getting a lot of papers out there that fail to replicate when people actually bother to replicate them. So, yeah, there's huge amounts of pressure, especially if you're a new professor and you haven't been tenured yet. Then you need to publish or perish. And, one professor told me, that so-and-so's not here anymore because he chose to perish. We told him, publish or perish, and he chose to perish. Because he only published 1 or 2 papers a year. It's not good enough. Those papers are great papers, but not good enough. So, yeah, and then if you publish some landmark paper, like you discover some new phenomena, that's basically guaranteed tenure, right? Unless you're Cornell West, apparently, who got tenure at Yale, but at Harvard, they're like, no, I know you're like one of the most famous professors in the world. We're not gonna give you tenure. What? Yeah. All right. Peer reviews getting bribed. No, that doesn't happen. Scientific establishment as a whole being a corrupt. No, I don't think so. Like there are individual cases of fraud. There's individual cases of people forging data results, things like that. P-phishing or statistical hacking, where scientists will cherry pick data to get the stats to say what they wanted to say. That's the thing. Overall, though, overall science does try to identify what's true and false, or what we can best our best guess of how reality works, I guess, is the best way of putting it. So no, I don't see the whole establishment as being corrupt, and people aren't being bribed. Like that's like you don't even have any contact with peer reviewers, right? Like when you submit a paper, it just gets submitted, and they're usually anonymously peer reviewed, or at least the conferences that I attend. The people submit anonymous papers. They strip their institution name off. They strip their name off. They strip anything that can identify them. And when we review it, we don't put our names on it either. I don't even know who my fellow reviewers are. And it's all anonymous. So it's basically impossible to get bribed. All right, Pantene Pro V shampoo contains provitamins that your hair needs. Yeah, it's classic pseudoscience. That was one of the examples I gave in class. If you don't even know what the hell it means, then that's classic pseudoscience. I demand tenure by trial of combat. Yeah, sometimes somebody will come in with a gun and shoot people. It's been known to happen. In recent experiment, you'll see bot ads pretending to hire drivers for Domino's. This is a true story, by the way. Which tends to hire men, and Instacart, which tends to hire women, and bot ads on Facebook, not targeting the ads at all, just being like, do your best, get maximum eyeballs on this ad. And Facebook delivered the Domino's ads to more men and the Instacart ads to more women, which is probably a violation of labor laws, right? Just like how people are advertising housing on Facebook, and if you're a white, you're more likely to get ads for an apartment than if you were black. Probably a violation of the Fair Housing Act. In fact, Trump's administration actually, I believe, sued Facebook over that. What was his name? Ben Carson? Is that the HUD? Yeah. In 2016, they found that Facebook was allowing advertisers to target ads racially, and Ben Carson, said Facebook's discriminating against people upon who they are and where they live. Using a computer to limit a person's housing choices can be seen as discriminatory, slamming a door in their face. So, yeah, that's a true story. Okay, so yeah, that's algorithmic bias. And when they ran a similar experiment on like LinkedIn, didn't happen. So it's something Facebook specific, right? And Facebook's response to all of these things is like, Facebook takes these issues very seriously. We're looking into it, and we believe in it. They just give these like generic like non-responses. How do they even find out if somebody getting a race is different ads for another race? Like, isn't it a breach of Facebook policy? I believe back then you can actually say target this ad at white people. So you're like, we got an apartment complex, but we don't want people of this race in there. So you just target the ads for your apartment complex at people of the right color. And it was like, damn, Facebook, like, really, And then after I believe they got rid of that option, then they were still doing it. So you just say like, advertise my apartment complex, and then Facebook would target it more at white people than at black people. So, yeah. And Facebook, it's like, we take these issues very seriously. They always just give these non-responses to things. Why even have that? It's just asking for a court case, right? Yeah, and Ben Carson like took him to task over it, So, all right. I don't know. How did they get away with it? I don't know, but they didn't. And if I remember correctly, I think they actually settled on that one. I think Facebook effectively lost that case. It's been a while since I've looked at it, so I'd have to look that up again. YouTube, last Monday, true story, this actually happened. YouTube took down one of my lectures for CSI 40 with no reason. It just said nothing. It just said your video is unavailable. You cannot appeal this decision. It's a final decision. No reason given. It was up for like a day, and then all of a sudden it just went whoop and went offline. And so students were trying to take a quiz. They couldn't watch the lecture. So this is a classic example of corporate censorship, right? So when a corporation can control free speech, it's corporate censorship, technically legal, right? Only governmental censorship is prohibited in America. If the government had said, no, you can't give a lecture on hash tables, which is what I was lecturing on, like, oh, no, it was CSI 41, not 40. Oh, doesn't matter. Yeah, like if the government said you can't lecture on hash tables, man, then that would be illegal, violation of the First Amendment. Corporations are free to do it. And so there's a big conversation going on right now in our society as to what extent free speech should apply to speech platforms like Facebook and Reddit and Twitter and I don't know, the YouTube comment section. I don't know. And the Supreme Court gave an opinion a week or two ago saying that they should start being regulated as common carriers. So nothing binding, but the Supreme Court came down pretty hard on tech companies, and so that we had we had a discussion on it prior to the Supreme Court ruling on it. It was very topical. A lot of you guys gave your opinions on corporate censorship, and then the Supreme Court's like, here's our opinion. It's just an opinion. It's not binding on anyone, but they gave their take on it, and it's pretty good. I think I posted the link on Discord. I'm losing more faith and trust in Facebook now. Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. Okay. 100 people in this class. Look at that. Exactly 100 people. It's amazing. Sam Harris says that science can determine what choices are healthier for us and therefore decide what actions are more moral by computing which actions will yield greater health. So this is an is-odd divide fallacy, even though he acknowledges it, but he says, yeah, but it doesn't matter anyway, because if we assume that health, bodily health, and well-being is the benchmark of right and wrong, right? Because everybody wants to be healthy and nobody wants to be sick and in pain. Then, if we could just assume that as the common ground for morality, then science can determine what is right and wrong. Because, we can, give people some glucosamine and chondroitin and see if that helps their joint pain go away. And if it does, congratulations. That's a moral decision to take glucosamine and chondroitin. And if it doesn't do anything, then who cares? And if it hurts you and it makes your joint pain worse, then that's an evil action. And this is all because Sam Harris is a utilitarian. Utilitarians have a criteria, in this case bodily health. Some of them, they put it as like pleasure versus pain, although pleasure is, it sounds like, like getting high and stuff like that. But pleasure in general just means a feeling of, being happy, maybe. And pain doesn't have to be like somebody's stabbing you with nails or something like that. But Harris, he's utilitarian that uses his moral criteria is health versus unhealth and pain, suffering. The F word, Facebook. You want to post a GIF about Facebook, but it contains the F word. Go for it. It's a college class. This isn't high school. Professors are free to swear, I think. Actually, I don't know the policy of Fresno State. So. That's fair. All right. Your delicate sensibilities. Yeah. Okay, we got a truth table here. So for this, I gave you the easiest possible truth table on this. Prior to the midterm being written, I asked somebody to come up with a number from 1 to 10. Somebody picked 4, so I try to make this midterm on the easy side. And so for this one, X and Y and Z. So this will only be true in the case that X, Y, and Z are true, which is A. And it is false in every other circumstance. So, yeah. So in every other circumstance, it's false. Okay. I wonder if somebody else put, or if they wrote false or something, but follow the pattern. 1 is true, 0 is false. Okay. The morality of an action should be judged entirely on intent and not on outcome is your classic deontology belief system. You have a duty to do something. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It doesn't matter if the outcome is good or not. If you have a duty to preserve human life, you have a duty to preserve human life. And that applies universally. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Saddam Hussein or, Hitler or something. Like, if you believe you have a duty to preserve human life, you have it. Kant was of the opinion you can't lie ever, right? Your wife asks you if the dress makes you look fat. You go, yep. If it does make her look fat. Can't lie at all. Deontology, hardcore. I've heard some people like DuckDuckGo. Yeah, that's what DuckDuckGo you say, huh? Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I ditched Google a long time ago. I used Bing for a while, which students were always kind of baffled by. But Bing, if you use Bing, they pay you $5 a month, and I figured that's about what my privacy violation was worth. Because Google violates your privacy, and they don't give you anything for it. They just target ads at you. Bing at least would be nice enough to buy you a coffee once a month, and I'm like, all right, well, it's about where I'd price my privacy, But then I thought about it some more, and I'm like, I'll go with the privacy route instead. So I switched my cell phone, everything switched to DuckDuckGo. Bing pays you, yeah, sure, absolutely. And you didn't know that because nobody uses Bing, right? It's also got beautiful backgrounds too. I love this. Wow, where is this? Portugal, Madeira. Ah, classic wine growing country there, Madeira. It's beautiful. Yeah, I love Bing's backgrounds. And so up here, you can see there's Microsoft rewards. And so every time you do a search, you get points, and then you can cash in the points for stuff. Calculate your BMI. It's dangerous during a pandemic, right? So you can get up to 50 points a day from searching and using. You can get bonus points by take the light speed quiz. All right, let's do the light speed quiz. You think you know about Mars? All right, let's do this. Mars is the Roman god of war. Who's the Greek god of war? Ares. Come on, seriously. All right, next. What mission included the first vehicle to drive on Mars? Pathfinder? Thank you. I don't think the other ones had it. Who discovered the moons of Mars? Tombaugh? No. Was that Pluto? That was the guy that discovered Pluto. Herschel? Hall? My goodness. Alright. Did not know that. When did the Mars Perseverance rover leave Earth, really? I don't know. Thank you. Alright. So, there you go. So, yeah. And so you do a daily quiz and things like that. And then you can cash in your Microsoft points for a Starbucks card or an Amazon gift card or whatever. So they literally pay you to spy on you. And I actually find that to be, like, reasonable. Because they're selling your information, right? Like, they know things about you. Because you have to be logged in to do that, right? And so they build up a profile of you. And so Microsoft sells ads targeted at you, and they're making money off you. But, like, if they cut you in on it, I'm kind of like, $5 a month, sure. $60 a year, sure. It's like a free AAA video game once a year. Yeah, it's fine. Google does not do anything like that. They just give you free email, and read all of your emails and spy on you, and yeah, they don't give you anything, like money-wise. Yeah. So if you're only using Bing to get the points, what are they really learning? Yeah, I don't know. Like, something. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I've kind of gone back and forth on it and try to decide if it bothers me that they're spying on you or not. You know what I mean? The thing that annoys me more is Android and how integrated Google's espionage, you can call it, system is integrated into Android. Right? That bugs me more, because even if you turn off everything and you turn on all the privacy settings, Google still uploads things like your Wi-Fi router name, your GPS location, so it's tagging your home address based on the MAC address of your router, and it does that. You can't turn it off, right? And the other routers around you, so it is, Google's compiled the physical location of every router on Earth. And so if you turn on your cell phone, and you don't have to log in on the router, just turn on your thing, and there's an Xfinity router over here. It gets the MAC address of it. It's like, oh, you're in Illinois now. And so it knows, and so when Google drives around with their thing, they're also listening to Wi-Fi addresses. And they're like, oh, there's that address, there's that router, it's at this address, there's this router at this address. And so they have a physical location of every Wi-Fi router on the planet, essentially. That at least people have been next to. It's possible there's a Wi-Fi router in, like, Alaska somewhere. I don't know. But, okay, so I understand that what we may be saying may not technically be true. Since it will help our party gain more power, we'll continue to say it. It is the greater truth that we are right. So that's a Marxist theory of truth, right? That which is true is that which helps the revolution. Same attitude, except substitute, your political party for the revolution. And if you ever see these memes talking about the hypocrisy of different political parties, it's because they care about power, right? Like they care about staying in power. Mitch McConnell made some sort of like argument like you can't do a new Supreme Court justice in an election year, right? And block Merrick Garland's nominee. He wouldn't even hear him. He wouldn't even have a hearing on Merrick Garland, Obama's Supreme Court nominee. And then when Trump had an opportunity to do a nominee after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, oh yeah, we're going to do that, you know, because it's about power. It's about trying to get more conservative justices in the Supreme Court, and vice versa, right? If you look at the reaction to Amy Coney Barrett, you know, from the left, completely hypocritical, right? Like they're making it look like the apocalypse was upon us, you know, and you know, and it's not just politicians, right? Like if you look at like what was his name, John Oliver, you know, like they just act like the sky is falling, and then when their people get nominated, it's like, oh, it's the best thing ever, you know. It's really annoying. Like, you know, you should be judging people on the same criteria, whether or not they have the same letter after your name, whether or not it's an R or a D or an I, should not matter in the slightest, and it does, and oftentimes it's the only thing that matters in politics, which is really annoying to me. Okay, so even though I haven't seen it myself, I just know everybody at work is saying bad things about me. So this is mind reading, right? And it's all or nothing also. So it's everybody. Right? Survivorship bias, not even close. Survivorship bias is when your data set is compromised because you're only looking at people that have passed a criteria. So, for example, if you ask CEOs why they're successful, they'll tell you have to take big risks. You know, and that's actually usually horrible advice in business, taking big risks. Of course, that might be the only way that you can make $1 billion, but probabilistically, if you take big risks, you're going to go bankrupt, right? Especially if you take big risks over and over again. Like you bet on a hard 12 in craps, sure, there's a 30-to-1 payoff, but it's 36-to-1 odds against you getting it. So every time you make that bet, you're going to lose money on average, but it's the only way that you can get a really big payoff. Like bet a hard 12 3 times in a row. You know, very few people are going to hit 3 12s, 3 boxcars in a row at craps, but those that do are going to have, you know, multiplied their money by, 27,000 or something like that. And they're like, look, and they interview you, look, how did you make, you know, $27,000 on a single dollar bet? Well, you just have to bet hard 12 every time. Okay, that's good advice for everyone. No, it's not. It's terrible advice. It's terrible advice. That's survivorship bias. When you only interview people that have passed through a criteria and you don't look at the people trying to get into it, so to speak. It doesn't apply. Doesn't apply at all here. Okay. Do not call handicapped people handicapped. Call them handy-capable is framing, right? We'll probably do a little bit more on framing. We're going to talk about the media, I think, next week. We're going to keep continuing our discussion of set theory this week. But framing is a really important concept. And so use of terminology is very big right now and very controversial in a lot of cases, what terms we use. It's very, very important. And that's because people are fighting. The culture war is essentially over fighting framing. It's over like how we're going to frame these issues, what terminology we're going to use. And yeah, so that's a classic example of framing. Which of these examples are the term blind run was banned on Twitch? Yeah, for being ableist. Right. Which of these are examples of using cryptography? Click all that apply. Using VPN, yeah, that encrypts your connection between you and the host. Do I have VPN open right now? I do. Yeah, so everything I'm saying right now, there's an encrypted connection between me and YouTube, streaming this. There's an encrypted channel between me and Discord, which is streaming the audio and video to you guys in the chat. So even my ISP doesn't know who I'm talking to, right? All they know is that I'm using data. I got a letter from AT&T yesterday saying I've exceeded my data cap for the month of April. And I'm like, really? Data cap? I never agreed to that nonsense. And that come in. I have the top tier internet service from AT&T, which is still not very good. So I was like looking up Comcast yesterday because I was just like offended by it. I never also agreed to the monthly router fee. Like when I got AT&T service, they gave me a router, and then later on they just decided to start charging a $7 a month fee for it. Like, how is that even like a thing? Like, how is that legal? I don't know. So, I'm very seriously debating canceling AT&T and going with Comcast instead. Yeah, data limit. There's a 1 terabyte data limit a month, and apparently when you're streaming lectures, you eat through a lot of data. Yeah, using HTTPS instead of HTTP. The S there means the connection is encrypted between you and your bank. It should always be HTTPS. In fact, there is an add-on called HTTPS Everywhere. Add-ons and themes. Let's see. Enhancer for YouTube. Some of you guys were asking me why my YouTube is a different color, by the way. Kevin Burke. Yeah, here we go. This is what I was listening to yesterday. So, like, you know, there's like a periwinkle color here.
Rambling with Kevin Burke.
Damn it. Copyright strike. So that's Enhancer for YouTube. You can change the colors of YouTube. There's a lot of really nice things about it. uBlock Origin, Sponsor Block, which is really nice. It skips anytime somebody's like, no, let's talk about NordVPN. Like, I didn't want to get NordVPN just because of how many sponsors they have on YouTube channels, and so that will just skip over it. Reddit Enhancement Suite makes Reddit a lot better, but this is what I was going to show you guys. HTTPS Everywhere. And so this will switch your connection, because a lot of people don't pay any attention to it, right? If you go to DuckDuckGo, they don't pay attention to whether or not there's an S right there. Like right there, there's an S. Like they'll just go to HTTP. And, right, but if you have HTTPS Everywhere, it switches it to HTTPS, if it can. If there is a secure version available, it'll switch it for you automatically. And that will encrypt your communications with every website that has support for HTTPS, and that will prevent people from eavesdropping on you. Your ISP still knows what website you're going to, though. So it's a good idea to use a VPN as well, if you care about those things. Comcast also has a data limit, yeah. If you rent a router from them, then unlimited data is like $11 a month, I think. Okay, so person A. Despite being ranked third in their division, and none of the experts thinking so, I think the Edmonton Oilers are the best team in hockey right now. Person B. That's true. So they're just using the deflationary theory. The deflationary theory means that there is no such thing as global truth or falseness. There's just agreement. Like when we say something is true, we're just agreeing with somebody else. Chocolate's the best flavor of ice cream. That's true. Just saying I agree. Okay. And people can also use multiple theories of truth, but in this context, person B is just agreeing. So that's deflationary theory. Michael Jordan is the sexiest man alive. Michael B. Jordan, I think. He was Killmonger, right, in Black Panther. How do you know this is true? He was voted #1 by readers of People magazine. So this is a consensus theory. Nobody got? What happened here? What happened here? Why did 0% of people get this? Huh. Strange. Okay. Okay, I might have to give you guys all a couple points on this. I don't know what happened here. Canvas is so garbage sometimes. Doesn't it bother you that either quantum mechanics or general relativity as we know it is wrong? Nope. Oh, that was probably when I hit yet unsafe changes and I hit it. Probably added these after the fact. Let's see, do we have 32 questions now? Whatever. Probably won't affect your grade. Nope, I could still do useful science at the small scale with quantum mechanics and the big scale with general relativity, so it doesn't bother me they conflict. So that's pragmatic. So pragmatic theory is the notion of not really worrying too much about the details, but just worry about what works. That's one way of putting it. that which it works is what's true, effectively. So, despite quantum mechanics and general relativity not possibly being both correct, since we can do valuable science, yeah, it's pragmatic theory. Pretty sure you answered it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened here, but I've already entered your grades, so this won't affect your grades at all. I've only done a cursory Google search on Irenaeus, Bishop of Lyon, in the 2nd century, but I'm confident I know more about his writings than you, which is more or less what a person said to me about a week or two ago. He didn't even know how to spell the dude's name right, and everything he said on it was clear. He had no idea what he was talking about, but it was just coming off as incredibly cocky, and I was like, nah, dude, that's classic Dunning-Kruger effect, right? When people have a little bit of knowledge, think they're experts on a subject, right? People typically seek out evidence that confirms their views and tend to be skeptical of evidence that runs contrary to their views. Yeah, that's just how humanity works. So if you believe something deeply, then anytime evidence comes in that agrees with you, you accept it, and evidence that comes in that you don't like, you tend to reject it. And you have to pile up a lot of examples that are contrary to what you believe in order to get you to switch your mind. So the best way out of this trap is to actually do research yourself. Like always, take the time to, like, if there's a conflict, there's a big debate over an issue, like you have to, like gun control, right? Like there's a lot of papers that have been written on gun control, a lot of opinions on it, a lot of academic, studies and meta studies. If you just don't believe in gun control because you like guns, then that's not being a critical thinker, right? Or if you think guns are scary, so you support gun control because guns are scary, then also that's not being a critical thinker. You have to actually sit there and put in the time and the effort, sometimes money, to like really dig into a subject. And it's really frustrating to me when you have politicians who won't do that. Like politicians who are passing the laws, like they're not aware of what laws exist, like all they would have to do is go into a gun store and talk to the people there and be like, all right, tell us what you think about the current laws in California on guns, and they will tell you, what works and what doesn't work, and they don't do that. And then they just pass more laws without having done the labor on it, And so what matters more to me than, whether you like a gun or not like a gun is actually, finding out what reality is like. And that's hard because, the people that do the studies on, let's say, gun control, they typically have a point of view too. And so they will tend to cherry pick data that matches their views and tend to reject data that doesn't match their views. And so you not only have to look at studies and then meta studies on the studies, but you have to look at different meta studies by different groups. And that takes time and energy when you could be watching, Game of Thrones or something, right? So, skimming headlines on CNN, no. CNN especially is garbage. Block people on social media with opposing views. No, heavens no. You want to encourage conversations with people with opposing views. Read opinion pieces from people who agree with you. No, you need to read opinion pieces of people who disagree with you. Yeah. Okay, extra credit. What difficulty did Professor Kearney target this midterm at for? Right, I mentioned that both in class, and you could have seen it on Discord as well. So that was extra credit. If you got it, you got an extra point on the midterm. Okay. I then took all of your tests, rounded them up to the nearest whole point, and gave you a point on the extra credit, and that's the midterm. So you'll get one more crack at this on the final. The final, again, will be the same format as the midterm. So make sure you got those logical forms and fallacies, and we'll do set theory by then. Yeah, we'll pick up set theory again on Friday. But I don't remember what fraction of your grade the final is. It's either 15 or 20% of your grade is the final, and so that'll be on finals week. Same format, window of opportunity. Once you start, you'll have 2 hours. So you get one more crack at the take one more swing, right? There will be a GE essay coming up. We'll talk about that probably next week. Every person at Fresno State that takes a critical thinking class has to do a essay of a certain number of words, and so we'll give you that assignment next week. Yep. And just emotional thinkers, no logic, just reaction. Yeah, it's called appeal to consequences, right? Like, I don't want there to be gun control laws, because if there are gun control laws, it would make me sad. Therefore, I don't oppose gun control laws. Yeah. That's, or vice, I don't like guns because they're scary. I want gun control laws because it would make me happy. Therefore, I support gun controls. Yeah, you have to reject all those forms of thinking and just actually try to dig on it. And it's hard. It really is. Like, I've tried investigating gun control before, and it's like, I am at the point where I just basically almost don't trust any of the studies, because, the authors tend to have their own point of view on it. And so you really have to just dig in and try to figure out reality, and that takes effort. And a lot of people just don't want to put out any effort on things, especially if you're not getting paid for it, or if it's not for a class. Why should I? Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess my answer is, do you want to go through life led by the nose by other people, or do you want to make up your own mind on things? Does truth matter? Right? Does it matter to you to find out what's true and what's false? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe for some people it doesn't, but for me it does. Like, I actually am very curious about what's true and what's false, and I don't want to believe something just because somebody else tells me to. I want to think for myself. So. Okay, so that's it for today. Like I said, we got the GE essay coming up. We'll do set theory again tomorrow. We'll do probably another program or two, hopefully. We're getting to the end of the social issues of computer science section of the class. There's kind of like one more lecture on that we need to talk about. And then we'll be heading into finals week after that. All right. Free will. Yeah, free will is, big topic. Big topic. We're not going to lecture on free will. If you're interested in free will and the nature of consciousness and things like that, I would take a philosophy of mind class. Philosophy is a lot of fun, especially when you have a good professor. When you have a good professor, you can really enjoy thinking about, what's the best way to structure society? Do we have free will? What is a color? Like, it just makes you question, things you just sort of take for granted. When I took metaphysics, we're talking about colors, and a guy's like, isn't it just photons at different wavelengths? And the professor gave a really bad response. I've heard that before, which it's like, come on, dude. Like, come on. You should at least have a basic understanding of physics. But I think what he was trying to get at is that, just because there's a photon of a different wavelength doesn't mean that it's just a photon. It's not a color. You know what I mean? Like, just because there's photons of different wavelengths doesn't mean that that photon carries color information. Color is a subjective process. Your brain generates the sensation of color when it perceives light at different wavelengths, and how that process happens is fascinating. And if you understand that, then when you go into game development, then you can understand how light works in games, and everything just ties together. Like, everything is interesting to me, and everything benefits you. I've used literally every class I've ever taken in my professional career. You would think I wouldn't use AP US history, but I did. At one point in my career, I found myself writing a 30-question multiple choice test for American history, and I'm like, how did my life come to this? And philosophy, I think, is good for your brain overall. All right, that's it for today, guys. Good luck. Have fun. I don't know if you have any assignments right now, actually, so I don't need to say that. Maybe I'll put up a reading for you guys to do. Okay, so that's it for now. Thanks, you guys. See ya.